Let's go.
Welcome to Citizen. We've got a special guest today, Remi Adeleke, former Navy SEAL, Hollywood star, author, consultant, so on and so forth. How's it going, buddy?
It's going great, brother. How about yourself, man?
Oh, I'm living the dream.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know, it's finally not 110 degrees every day in Texas. So
Yeah, I know. It's actually cool over here. It's been like 75, 70 like the last week. It's been able to turn off my AC at night.
yeah, well, we're not that fortunate here.
Yeah,
Not yet, anyways. So you've got we've had you on Drinking Bros before, but I
yeah,
think people know your backstory to a great degree, and they also know a lot of your work. You know, you've been on some reality shows, you've done quite a bit of consulting behind the scenes on some major Hollywood projects, and now you're getting into the book, to Chameleon, the series that you're working on. Um,
yeah.
we didn't get too deep into Chameleon before,
Yeah.
but I'm kind of curious if you could give me like the elevator pitch on that, because
Yeah.
it sounds a lot like like some of the spy thrillers that I'm really into, like The Gray Man and The Nowhere Man and shit like that.
Yeah, no, for sure. First and foremost, it's grounded. The idea came to me back in 2010. I was overseas and doing human intelligence, and I had to be a chameleon. I had to be a different person for every source. I couldn't be the same person for every source, and then I had to be a different person when I was briefing my OIC.
Mm.
I had to be a different person when I was briefing an admiral or somebody up at the chain of command, CJ Soda, because I was sending intelligence stuff, and I was like, dang, like this would be a cool concept for a film. And the first thing that came to mind for me was a film
Mm.
called Chameleon, about this guy who is able to, be whatever character he needs to become at the drop of a dime. And then fast forward, after I got out of the military in 2016, in 2017, I, was getting more so into filmmaking. And I was like, you know what, I need to get some education in it. And so I went to a method acting school called the Lee Strasberg Theater and Film Institute. And that's where I really learned a lot about method acting and how people can get into character. And so I kind of merged those two
Mm.
ideas. Idea of a character who's a spy, he's tactically trained, and it's all grounded in reality. He's part of a team, so he's not like James Bond doing everything by himself, but also he has this capability that's also grounded in acting, right? Because at the end of the day, all spies they're really good actors,
Mm.
right? And so essentially that's what Chameleon is. It follows Kali Kent and his black box team, and they are tracking down a South African mastermind who's essentially created this ingenious way to manipulate the stock market in order to carry out economic warfare. And so the first part of the book is them trying to identify this guy. Like it's more investigative. So there's action, but there's a big investigative piece to it where they're having to find sources and then follow clues and to uncover this guy's identity. And finally, when they do, then the next part of the book is them like, actually, okay, how do we capture this guy? Because he's in the public eye. He's really smart. There's no real proof that what he's doing is wrong, and we're not Interpol, so we can't just go after international terrorists unless it's a direct tie to what they're doing to try to destabilize America. So it's a very heads up type book.
Mm.
It's not one of those books where you could just kind of check out and eat popcorn.
Yeah. Well, I mean, those are the best ones, right? I mean, they turn into page turners, I feel like, books like that. Jack Carr's really good at writing like that, too. There's like something going on pretty much every page. There's no fluff, I guess you might say.
Exactly. And it's also a political thriller as well, because one thing that we face here in our country as it relates to politics is how politicians lie and cheat and manipulate in order to maintain control of a base, right? Maintain control of their base, and they'll discredit, other people. So, in order, and they'll make decisions. And so I really wanted to uncover that as well. So that's part of it, where you have the president that's just like, he's not making decisions for the, for the benefit of everyone. He's making decisions because it's a voting year, right?
Yeah.
I remember facing that every time I was deployed, during a voting year, where like all operations shut down. It's like we're downrange, and like it's towards the end of the deployment. Like my deployment cycles were always like from February to about September, October. And every time without fail, like around August, September, like ops don't get approved as much as they did like prior. You know,
yeah, it's no, it's goofy, that's for sure. Yeah, it's I'm glad you mentioned that that politicians lie to maintain control. It seems like the government has grown from being, a service to the people to being an engine that just propagates its own existence and tries to expand power and stuff like that. I wonder, from your perspective, you were you were a Navy SEAL for a while. You worked in the you worked in, I guess technically that's not the intelligence community, but you worked on the intel side to some degree as well. How do you feel like the country, like ordinary citizens, can best insulate themselves from that?
From being deceived, from being manipulated.
Certainly, yeah. Well, I mean, being deceived and also deceived, manipulated, but also taken advantage of, I guess.
So how can they protect themselves from that?
Yeah.
I would say opening their minds and being open to other sources of information. One thing, when I was overseas, I couldn't just go on an operation just because of what one source said. Like, it had to be vetted against other sources and against SIGINT and against other intelligence that we had in order for us to go on an op. And I find that here, so many people are just so focused on, hey, whatever this mainstream media outlet tells me, I'm going to run with it, and without doing any investigation. Like, I don't even watch the news anymore. I get most of my news from like YouTube, like YouTubers from who have different perspectives, like you guys. I've listened to this podcast before. Also, Bet Anthony, I believe his name is, like hearing his perspective, Joe Rogan, all these.
Patrick Bet David.
Yeah, Patrick Bet David.
Yeah, he's a good guy.
So I try to get all of these different perspectives and then take it and then formulate, what my opinion is. And I think there's so many people who are so easily brainwashed, right? They're sheep. They're just like whatever they hear from the government, whatever they hear from their local politicians, it's like that is the gospel. And I think that, we're smarter than that. And so the best way to protect ourselves from that is to be open to various forms of information and then making your decision based off of the collective information opposed to just one pipeline, if that makes sense.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think it's really important to, for all of us collectively, through our behavior and the way we talk about things and the way, and just the standard we set to shape what matters to people in a society, right? And it starts young in childhood, but it also continues into your adulthood. I think especially people who have been around the block a little bit. Like there's the onus is on you to set the standard. It's like leaders eat last, right? That's what we do. Make sure that everybody's taken care of first. And a big part of that is making sure that people aren't getting taken advantage of or duped or whatever the fuck. Because right now,
I would also say we have to. People are not willing to question anything, dude. It's like even with this writer strike, I'm part of the WGA, and it's like I sent an email to my strike captain because I was just like, dude, like this is ridiculous. Like, this article just came out last month, a couple weeks ago, saying that the AMPTP gave an offer on August 18th, and we haven't responded. We were supposed to respond to that offer in a week, and his response is the same response that I've seen in so many other trades. It's like, oh well, you can't trust what the AMPT says, or you can't trust the source of the article. And I said to him, I said, listen, I've read multiple sources and multiple articles. And I said, if that was untrue, we're over almost 140 days into the strike. And the people who are suffering the most are not the writers. The people who are suffering the most are like the IATSE, like the
Mm.
truck drivers, it's like the caterers, it's all of these people who are
Yeah.
suffering. And I said, we're so far in. If that claim was a lie, then it's the WGA's responsibility to come out and say, that's a lie. We never received an offer on August 18th, and we never told the AMPTP that we would reply in a week. That's a lie. But they did not say anything. I was talking to another operator, Tyler Gray, about
Mm.
this. Really, he's a writer in the industry as well. And he was just like, spot on. If something like that is a lie, then it should have been checked. But the fact that nobody responded to that from the WGA, it shows that that was actually the truth. They've been sitting on an offer for 3 weeks while everybody's been suffering and trying to paint the AMPTP as the bad guys. And so I say all of that to say, I'm not trying to paint the WGA as bad guys in this, but I say all that to say is like, you have to question what, even when you're a part of a union, you got to question your union. Like you can't just run with this answer like it was this cookie cutter answer that my strike leader tried to give me. Say, well, you can't trust the source, or well, the AMPT always lies. Okay, I get that, cool, but what else is going on here? Because there's no reply, and that applies to politicians. That applies to just laws. That applies to absolutely everything, right? Like everything in moderation, obviously, but we have to be willing to question everything. And we found ourselves in a position in this country where people are not willing to question anything. And a lot of the reason why is out of fear. It's out of fear. Oh, if I question this, then I'm gonna get canceled. If I question this, then I'm gonna look like this person or look like and it's like, no, dude, like we live in a country with freedoms where you can question things. Like I grew up in Nigeria. I mean, I spent the first 5 years of my life in Nigeria. And obviously, like you, I've been to other parts of the world where you cannot question your government. You cannot question the person you work for. Otherwise, you will end up in jail. And I just think that, so many people have just forgotten that they have the ability and, our laws allow us to question those, who are quote unquote in authority over us.
Yeah. It's one of the death blows to any meritocracy is the inability or unwillingness to question authority, right? I mean, you end up in a silo essentially, just in an echo chamber that just gets dumber and dumber over time. I mean, and that's the conservation of energy, law of conservation of energy. It just the thing degrades each time it moves from one place to another without being reinspected, I guess, for lack of a better phrase. But this what you're describing is something that Noam Chomsky talked about back in the 80s called manufacturing consent, right? It is there's a bunch of different ways of doing it, but primarily it is about controlling the media and how there's a bunch of different strategies. Some are like requiring business licenses that are difficult for people to get in the same way that poll taxes and literacy tests were used to keep black people from voting back in the day. It's that same kind of thing, just to box people out. And then having large bureaucracies parrot the news media and work with them and stuff like that. But the thing that you were talking about is called flack and the enforcers. Flack refers to the negative response to a media statement or program, but it also can refer to like you personally. This is what the goal of manufacturing consent really is to have you so nervous that you won't even say what you're thinking for fear of some kind of retribution or whatever it is. And that is fucked. I mean, the trying to control what somebody thinks is probably, aside from violent things, the most nefarious thing you can do to another person. I mean, it's completely fucked up. And it also doesn't work for very long because the human mind rebels at this stuff. You know what I mean? Like, that's why places that have authoritarian regimes have regular revolutions and uprisings and stuff, because the human mind rebels to that.
Yep. No, 100%. It's mind slavery. On slavery, and it breeds an environment of cowards, man, where nobody is willing to step up and say anything. That's why, like, I try to be bold. Like, even my memoir Transform, like, I tried to talk about, like, I talked about the issues in inner city, black communities. You know what I mean? I talked about how hip hop music has influenced generations of kids in a very negative way, especially kids who come from a single parent home. That's why you see, like, it's so crazy. I was on Twitter yesterday. You see saw this video in Philly But this guy just walks up to this other dude, and one black guy walks up to another black dude. The black dude's just like literally on his phone on the street, and he passes and turns around, puts a gun to his head, blows his brains out,
Yeah, I
kills
saw
him.
that.
And then there was another video I saw yesterday at the same time, like on the same feed. I'm just like, and what comes for that? And then there's a video of the kids that were riding around, listening to music, and talking about hit that fool, and they're talking, and they hit the freaking guy riding a bike, you know what I mean? And they're recording it on their phone as they're listening to music, and it's like a lot of that comes from music. It comes from the culture that's just been so ingrained in young inner city youth that it's like it's destructive, and people don't want to talk. They don't want to tell the truth about it. You know what I mean? It's like no one wants to say like this is a problem. Like this music that motivates and instigates kids to go shoot other people or their rival, to fight, shoot somebody if they feel disrespected, or sleep around, or be a player, all of these different things. Like nobody wants to say that that's destructive. It's like, no, that's just art. But no, it's not just art, because that art has been imitating life. People like life has been imitating that art for decades, and we see how destructive it is in places like Houston, Texas, in places like the Bronx, in places like Brooklyn, in places like Chicago. And and so for me, like that's why I made it a point in my book to really like say, hey, like this was the reason why I did the things that I did. And this is a systemic issue that has to be dealt with. And until the truth is put out there for people to see, then everybody's going to just continue going about their business doing the wrong thing.
Yeah, I mean, it's yeah. I remember some of those interviews in the early '90s with Ice Cube, where he was, he would say that when people would criticize the lyrics, that he was just explaining what happened in his real life on the streets. And I guess, fair enough, right? But what's the after you expose the thing that is unsavory or not great, what's your responsibility to then give the right message afterwards? You know what I mean? Kind of feel like there should be some follow-up there. If you're a doctor and all you do is diagnose and then tell the guy to get the fuck out of your office, that's not a great doctor. You know what I mean?
100%, man.
So it's I think I talked to a lot of people about this. My buddy Larry does the Dad Edge podcast, and a bunch of other guys who feel the same way about this. But there really has to be, like, this is part of the leadership that we're missing in America. People, mostly I would say men, who are willing to stand up and say what's right and wrong. You know what I mean? And then actually take a look at data and see what drives some of these issues that are being more or less lied about or ignored, by politicians. Why is violent crime such a big issue in inner cities, right? Why is, and then to that same point, why are there so many young suburban kids killing themselves or shooting up fucking public places? These are all, in my opinion, symptoms of the same disease, which is just an absolute nihilism. Like, they don't feel like if you ask a random teenager in the 1980s what it meant to be American, I think they would have an answer. The answers would vary, certainly, but I think they would have an answer, and I'm pretty sure the majority of them would have been positive. If you ask a 16-year-old now what it means to be an American, I don't think you're going to get any. I don't think you will get very many coherent answers in the first place, but the ones you do will be very negative. Unless you're dealing with like a very small group of people, maybe in the South or something like that. But the vast majority of them are going to have some negative attitude, and that's fucked, man. That cannot be the case, because I feel like I say this in almost every show now, but it's one of my favorite quotes. A British author said, his name's G.K. Chesterton, he said that men didn't love Rome because she was great. She was great because the men loved her, right?
Yeah.
It's like broken window theory on a grander scale. I care about this. It matters to me that being American is something I can be proud of. That's your responsibility. You know what I mean? Like, don't just say you're proud to be something. If you're gonna claim that, if you're gonna claim that clout, that pride clout, then it's on you to make sure that it fucking stays, worthy of your pride, I would imagine.
1,000%. And we're seeing how what you just mentioned with the way this generation feels about their country. That's reflected in the recruitment
Mm.
numbers, right? Because recruitment numbers are at historical
Yeah,
lows.
nobody's gonna go fight and die for a country they don't believe in. That's not gonna
Yeah,
happen.
yeah, but where does that come from, right? I think that a big part of that also is, you touched on data earlier. People don't want to pay attention to the data, right? They don't want to, whether it's good data or whether it's bad data. Like everything, like if it's good data, like, hey, here are the benefits of somebody that grows up in a home with both parents. Here are
Mm.
the benefits of somebody that joins the military and the potential outcome for that. Like people don't want to pay attention to data. Everything's just so emotionally driven.
Mm.
Like everything like thrives and either lives and dies on emotion. And I think that social media has been like a major melting pot and of this of emotion and of projecting emotions or projecting how people should feel, especially young people, as it relates to their country or their parents or authority or before, again, like going back to the music thing back in the day, like in the 90s, it was like music has such a massive influence, right, on the culture. And that's when I want to say that's when we started to begin to see the shift in how people felt about America. Because I know for me, I didn't want to join the military because I associated anybody in the U.S. in a military uniform as the police, and I hated the police.
Mm.
Where did that come from? Where did that hatred come from? Part of it came from what I saw, a few bad seeds do, but it also came from, the music and what I was told. And that ship has grown exponentially with the rise of social media, where you get these kids who are getting these messages, some of them targeted via apps like TikTok, where we know that the Chinese government is utilizing TikTok in a way to specifically target girls to make them feel American girls to make them feel ugly, young kids to hate their country. Like the algorithm specifically targets kids with specific messages in order to elicit this emotional response, not a fact-driven response, but an emotional response about their country. And so yeah, it sucks, but again, people don't care about the data anymore. It's all about emotion.
Mm.
And I think that, social media is a good thing, right? Like, YouTube has been good, but it's also a bad thing. Instagram can be good for your business. It can be good to get specific messages out there. But like the message that you put out on Instagram that I loved, man, because that's something that's been on my mind for a long period of time as it relates to veteran suicide is, I think that I don't think that it's solely about the traumas that we face and the things that we saw. Yeah, that could be a part of it, but I think that the lighter on that, the instigator of that is guys are feeling loss of purpose. They have no purpose. They have no drive like they had before. And that's where they're just like, it's nothing for me to live for anymore. But again, going back to my point, you put that positive message out there. So social media can be a good thing and it can be used for good, but I would say like 80% is used for bad.
Yeah. Yeah, it's, hard work is what makes life great. You know what I mean? Like take the stairs, do the hard thing because it's going to make your life better in the end. And you're also not. Every time you take a shortcut, you're subjugating yourself either to circumstance or to another person or organization, which I don't think is very healthy for people to do. But um, on the other side of that, no one's going to work hard for no reason. You know what I mean? People aren't. This is how you know for sure life is about the journey and not the destination because nobody will work hard for its own sake. That doesn't make any sense to human beings. We don't even think that way. We work hard for a purpose, right? And so I want to talk about purpose since you brought it up there. You, like myself, before you joined the military, were on a pretty bad track doing dumb shit, just wasting your fucking life, really. You know what I mean? That's what it amounts to. Like you can say that this stuff was there's no reason to make a moral judgment about it. It's just a fucking waste of time, really. But then, your fucking well-functioning human brain says to you, whether you realize it or not, let's go find some purpose so I can stop being a shiftless layabout and being a drag on society. That's what it's really all about. You know what I mean? That we know that that hard work is what drives success and happiness in life and fulfillment, but it has to be associated with purpose. You know what I mean? And that's why when guys come back, you know, and it's a confluence of factors. When we found out that all these wars we've been fighting were fucking pointless, that sucks. When Afghanistan fell, that sucks. You get back to your country and you're like, man, I was fighting for my community and I don't even see a community here anymore. It's just a bunch of random individuals who hate each other. That's a hard thing for people to deal with. You know what I mean? But the solution is very obvious. It is that your service didn't end because you took off the uniform. You are still, you know, you are still a servant to the public, whether you know, are wearing a uniform or in a position to do so or not. So it's really on us, you know, to lift each other up, certainly, but also to, I guess, push our bad feelings to the side and make sure that we improve our position. That's the gunfighter's motto, right? Like I'm always improving my position no matter what.
Yeah.
And that is the path to recovery. You know, I mean,
Yeah.
and it's been said a bunch of different ways over the year. Gandhi said, if you want to find yourself, lose yourself in the service of others. You know, a lot of people smarter than me have said this before, but it is a fact. It's an iron law of humanity that
Yeah.
if you are damaged or nihilistic or hopeless, you will find hope in purpose. And purpose is almost always associated with helping other people. Like every meaningful thing you do in your life will be in the service of other people. That's how we are designed. Um,
Yeah.
so I think, you know, that all sounds nice, but it could still be a platitude unless there's some kind of concrete pathway to it. So I'm wondering, you know, from your perspective, now that you're a successful professional post-military, aside from just being a good father to your children and a good husband to your wife, what else crosses your mind in that regard? Like how do we, as individuals and then as groups, leverage that purpose, you know, towards our own benefit and towards the benefit of society as well?
Yeah, I mean, I think it kind of starts with one trying to, discovering that, taking time. One thing I tell veterans, like when not veterans, but active duty guys who are, a year or 2 years from getting out, is hey, really sit and plan out. We have a saying in our community and the teams, it's like, hey, plan your dive your plan. Really plan out what your exit plan is going to be and what it is. Like really discover what it is that you want to do and moving forward. And and that way, when you get out and you have a structure, especially with the savings, you're not having to fall into something just to pay the bills because you didn't plan properly and everything falls apart. So I think that discovery has to start before a person gets out. And if it's, if a veteran's already gotten out, it's like, hey, kick the tires, light the fires, make some sacrifices. So that way you can take a month off of work to really, figure that thing out. But I think it all starts there. It's all at the root. And you'd be surprised at how I shared this message at a veterans conference. Probably I'll try and pull it up while I'm talking, but I shared this message at this conference, and it was titled the answers to your future can be found in your past, right? And what I was breaking down was how I was able to really discover what my purpose would be moving forward by looking at the things that I did in my past. For example, like looking at the things that, I was just naturally good at, or looking at the things that, here it is, the title says, within your past, you will find the plans for your future. So, what are those things that you weren't really good at, but people just kept on saying, hey, like you should keep trying that. There's something there. Like you have a gift there. Like you should focus on a little bit more. And so I remember when I got out in January 2016, I went through the process of saving money so that when I got out, like I wasn't having to take a job at Starbucks or take some shooting gig job that I didn't want to do, right? And I was getting my master's as well. And I just remember after I got out, I got a few consulting gigs because that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to go into business consulting full time. And then after that, like 2 or 3 gigs, like all the work dried up. And I started to find myself like in a state of depression where I was just like, dang it, dude. Like, should I go back to the teams? Like, should I try and apply for the agency? Should I like, because what I thought I was going to be good at, it seems like I'm not good at. And I have a mortgage, I have 2 kids, I got a wife that I got to provide for. Like, and I just started falling into a depression. And a good friend of mine, Cody Gifford, his mom's Kathy Lee Gifford, she invited me and me to Israel, all expense paid trip to Israel. And I went there and I had time to really just sit. Like it was like a 2 week trip. And I just was like, there were times when the guy was just like, all right, just go sit by the Sea of Galilee and don't talk to anybody, just reflect, just stare out where Jesus may have been, on the Sea of Galilee and just reflect on your life. And then we would climb this big mountain, and he would say, our guide would say the same thing. Don't talk to anybody, don't converse, just reflect. And the more I reflected, the more I began to like see that writing was a big part of my past, like writing and storytelling, and not writing and storytelling for the sake of like edifying myself, but writing and storytelling for the sake of serving others. For example, when I was a human guy in the teams, a big part of that job was writing. I had to write these reports in order for us to be able to get jobs. So in order for me to be able to like serve my country, in order for us to be able to go after bad guys, I had to write in a way that was visual, clear, and in a way that would, allow a battlespace commander to approve an operation. And so when I got back from that trip, I was like, that's it. Like I'm a storyteller, but I'm a storyteller that's goal is to inspire, motivate, and educate in some way through story, whether that's speaking, whether that's writing a book, or whether that's making a film. And so it was that trip that really helped me with that. So I know I said it was a long answer to your question, but in short, it starts with sitting down and being honest with yourself and reflecting on your past, and in that you'll be able to find what your purpose is for your future.
Sure. Yeah. I think, asking yourself, and this works, by the way, socially, it works psychologically for you, and it also works in business. This is one of the primary things you do in business is your value proposition, right? Like what is it that I have to offer that society needs? Because that intersect. I mean, there are some things for the vast majority of people will be true. Like for most men, being a protector and provider primarily for your family will be the thing that fulfills you most in life, right? And then for most women, being a caretaker and being a mother is probably going to be the thing that fulfills you most in life. But those, the way that we map all that out, it translates to pretty much every other facet of life, right? And I think it's an important thing to ask yourself, what do I have that society needs? Or if you're out there and you're mentally doing fine, you're working a job you don't like, well, what do I have outside of the normal 9 to 5 that people need? How can I turn this into a business, so I can improve my family's life? Because I promise you, being happier is going to improve your family's life. Being a miserable turd all the time because you hate your fucking job is not going to be, it doesn't create a great home life. I'll say that.
And on that note, dude, like I truly believe, man, I'm of the belief that we weren't created for us. We were created for others. Like I truly, that's why we all have a very unique fingerprint. Like out of all the people that have ever lived on the earth, no one has the same. No 2 people have ever had the same exact fingerprint. And I think that says a lot. Our DNA is all different. I think that says a lot. And why is that the fact? Is because we were created, to serve, to give to other people what they were not created and born to do, and vice versa. And I go back to, the best example I try to use with this is, a platoon. Just so whether it's an infantry platoon, SEAL platoon, whatever type of platoon, Ranger platoon, a platoon. In each platoon, there are guys that have specialization. You got the sniper, you got the breacher, you got the JTAC, you got your medic, you got your intel guy, you got your OIC, you got all of these different roles. And the team as a whole can't be effective if each guy operates within their role. It's like a puzzle piece that has to together in order for you to see the whole image. And that's a great reflection of life. Like there's what, 7, 8 billion people on this planet. Like we, each of us were created so unique, and each of us have unique stories. And when you take our unique DNA and all of the gifts that we have, and you merge that with our story and our background, and then you merge that with our life experiences, there's so much that each person can bring to the table, can bring to the world to give to another person, right? Podcasting is not my thing. I don't think podcasting is going to ever be my thing. That doesn't work for me. It's, you know, but that's your thing. That's your, with your experiences, your background, and you know what you do, you know, with the Drinking Bros podcast and this podcast. Like I can't do that, but I know what you do blesses a whole lot of people, and I know what I do blesses a whole lot of people. What you do blesses me, and what I do hopefully blesses you. And so I think that so many more people have to wake up to that fact. I think that so many people are like, who am I? Like I'm a nobody, and I can't help anybody. I can't, you know, I don't have a gift to bring to the world. Like, you know, even when I go to Chick-fil-A, like I know this might sound crazy, but you go to Chick-fil-A and there was this old guy. He was a greeter at the Chick-fil-A that I used to go to. He's not there anymore, but the dude he was just the nicest guy. Like he would just come in, and he just would treat you like you were the only person on the planet, and he would just, you know, greet you with such a respect. How can I serve you? What can I do for you? And he didn't work behind the counter. Like literally, he worked like in front of the counter, just greeting people, and his smile and his grace would just light up every single person that came in, and that was his gift. That was his gift to the world, right? And I think so many people are like, well, I don't have a lot to bring to the world. We all have something to bring to the world. We just have to find it, and we all have a job, essentially, is the point I'm trying to make. And I think that the reason why the world is falling apart is because so many people, and you touched on it earlier, so many people have been brainwashed with media, social media, to be individuals. So many people have culture to be all about me, and they don't realize that it's about us. It's about others, you know?
Yeah, that's that's the number one rule in life to me is that it's not about you, you know. And this is, you know, this could be reductive, I guess, but one of the ways that was helpful for me to go through all this stuff was to find things that made me happy and things that pissed me off, right? And then, you know, ask myself, well, how can I integrate the things that make me happy more into my life? And so I'm doing that. And how does that intersect with the skills I have? And then how can I stop things that piss me off? You know what I mean? Like injustice and things like this, or more than even injustice is, you know, psychological oppression, you know, just the powers that be trying to keep people, you know, under their thumb and stuff like that. And I agree with you. The best way to do that is to give people more information, and also to give them the courage to speak up when shit's fucked up. You know what I mean? So that's what I do. But that's not going to be for everybody. Some people it'll be the best day of their life every day to be a Walmart greeter and just smile at people as they walk through the door. Some people are uniquely suited to that particular job. Now, it's not always going to be that obvious. Unfortunately, life is fucking complicated. But if it was easy, it wouldn't really be worth doing. So, yeah, I think these are really good ways to think about life, and ways to, you know, find your niche. This is a big jigsaw puzzle. It's a big machine, and we need every part for it to be complete. You know what I mean? We can't afford to have people slip into depression and kill themselves and shit like that. We can't afford to have people wasting their goddamn lives on stupid shit because they're depressed or because they can't find their purpose. We just, as a society, we can't afford that. It's when we all do better, we all do better. That's how it works, right? Like any other functioning machine. So, yeah, I am very inspired by people like yourself. Tyler's a buddy, Jack, guys that have, you know, been, you know, gunfighters who are like, you know what, I got this other thing too. You know what I mean? Who've been able to transition. I think it's a big inspiration to a lot of people. So, you know, I appreciate you coming on. I know you got to get out of here. Tell everybody where they can find you and where they can find all your books.
Well, first of all, thanks for having me on, brother. Appreciate you.
Yeah, anytime, buddy.
Connecting with you, and man, once again, thank you for that post the other day. That blessed me. You know, it was just more confirmation for me. But yeah, I'm on Remi Adeleke, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, and my apparel site is casualwear.com. And even on that, like, this one is unlimited potential. And even for our apparel line, I told my business partner, I was like, I want every shirt to have something on there that can inspire, motivate, and educate somebody in some way, and even if it's subtle. And so you can go to casualwear.com and find some cool stuff there as well.
Cool. Yeah, and check out the books. Check out Transformed, which is autobiography, and then check out Chameleon. There's going to be more of those coming down the pipe soon, and some short. Well, there's a short film out already, but there's
It is a Chameleon short film on YouTube
yeah.
out. Chameleon actually started out as a screenplay. It started
Mm.
out as a movie, got picked up by a major studio, and then reverse engineered it. So it is going to be a movie. And then Transformers, I already turned in a first draft of the script of Transform before the writer's strike. So that's going to be a movie. And so yeah, you can check out those books, Transform the Chameleon.
Can't wait, man. Well, thanks for coming today. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me on, Dan. I
Yeah.
appreciate it.
Yes, sir. And thank you all for listening. This has been Citizen.